Hi, everybody. Oh my God, you're way back there. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I felt like I was overdressed this morning when I got up, so I decided to don my beautiful LastCon t-shirt before I go home and my children steal it from me. So please Google the shirt now because it's going to stay in Boston, probably being worn by my 17-year-old later today, if I make it home. There's a hurricane coming, apparently, so anybody who's flying out, check your flights. All right. Thank you all. Just curiosity, how many of you were here last year who saw my talk? Yay. Thank you for coming back to hear me talk. This is exciting. This is new stuff, though, so I'm super excited to share it with you. But first, just a little bit about me, for those who don't know me. I am a PhD candidate. Last year, I was a PhD student, which means I actually passed not only advanced cryptography, woohoo, got through elliptical curves. Yes, marketing people can do elliptical curves. But I passed my preliminary exams, even though Gene Spafford is my committee chair, tried not to help me pass. I did pass, so now I'm a PhD candidate, yippee, which means that I'm all but dissertation. So if you see me hunkered down in the green room, it's because I'm working on my dissertation research. I'm also the executive director of the Open Information Security Foundation. Does anybody know of Sarah? Yay, all the Sarah fans in the world, thank you, Ben. Ben and I shared a taxi yesterday morning. Sarah is an open source IDS, IPS network engine. It's a great tool, check us out. And I run the foundation that supports Sarah. I'm the former director of communications from the Tor project, so that kind of gives you a frame of where my thinking comes from. It was an interesting 2 years at Tor. That's all I'll say about that. I'm also a survivor of cyber stalking. So again, this kind of gives you the frame of where I see privacy and information on the internet. And over the course of my life and my career in information security, that's only been 5 years, I've considered that I've become the bridge that helps to shorten the gap between technical and non-technical users. So for 17 years, I was in the business environment with an MBA in marketing. I'm one of those evil marketing people that you guys, or some people in this room, might not like. I'm a survivor of cyber stalking, and now I am, hopefully, this time next year, you might be calling me Dr. Masada. I'm planning on defending in May. But weaving in all of those experiences of a business mind, a personal experience around security and privacy, now combined with what I'm learning in my PhD, is like the big picture view into my brain. And of course, I'm a mom of 2 teenage daughters. I picked a nice picture this year, not a goofy picture, so they'll be happy. But basically, I live my life through rose-colored glasses. I spent 5 years down in the deepest, darkest places I couldn't even imagine before that event happened. And coming out of it, I put my rose-colored glasses back on. Because even the time that I spent at Tor, and Tor's a great place, it's a great technology, they're great, great people. But when you spend a little bit of time in the hacker community or in a place like Tor, you realize that there's a lot of evil in the world, right? Would everybody agree that there's horrible stuff going on in the world? And you can either spend your time kind of down in the bowels of that, or you can rise out of it, or choose not to be in it. I chose not to be in it, okay? I'm choosing not to be afraid anymore. I'm choosing not to think about all the bad actors in the world, even though it's part of my research now. So my life, my research, and the way I approach this talk and everything I do now is through rose-colored glasses. So it's not that I'm naive to all the bad crap out in the world. And I won't swear like some of the other people who've spoken at LastCon in years past. But, so what I want to give you is just sort of a big picture view of some of the work that I've been doing for the past year. and the things that I've learned. And the reason why is that I want to show you that all the work that you're doing on this great technology and all these great software elements have a use in the world, okay? But there's some things that we need to fix, too. It's not quite there yet. So my research is in information security in organizations working with victims of violence. When I had to pick my dissertation topic, I went back and I read the essay that I had to write in order to be able to be accepted at Purdue. And I wrote about how I wanted to help victims of stalking, obviously, right? That's where I thought, you know, I would be waving the flag. And this May, when I was challenged with my prelim exams, which became part of the foundation for my dissertation research, I decided that I don't want to be in the victim space anymore. It's not where my head's at. I've moved far beyond it. But what I did realize is that the organizations that I went to for help, and the organizations that I now partner with in some respects, what I'm seeing with them is that they're really struggling with information security. They're really struggling with, how do I manage everything that's out there on the internet about our organization? And so I did some digging around and I realized, I'm like, oh my God, there's a ton of research out there about how victims use technology, okay? You can find a research on how victims of domestic violence use technology and their abusers can find them, how victims of human trafficking are on social media. There's tons of research on the victim side. There's no research right now, hence the right now. There's no research looking at organizations, nonprofit organizations, working with victims of violence and how they're managing information security. Oh my God. We have a whole population of organizations out there in the world, you guys, that have no idea all the great work that you guys talk about here at LastCon. They don't understand it, and frankly, they're afraid of it. So my research is going to be looking at that. But what I have to do, as my committee so dutifully told me in August, when I was tortured for 2 hours in front of them, presenting my beautiful Save the World plan, right? I'm like, I was going to save the world. I'm going to make every nonprofit working with victims of violence safe. And they said, Kelly, we have one thing for you. Get the degree, go save the world, not the reverse. Okay? So I'm going to show you some insights of what I've been learning along the way, but it's all centered around this idea. And just in case any of you are interested in an interesting statistic, 20 people per minute fall victim to physical violence by an intimate partner. So, you know, the victims of these horrible crimes aren't going away, and therefore the organizations that are chartered to help them are also growing. So we need to be mindful of that. So, just like any researcher and anybody who's looking at information security, the first thing you want to do, or one of the first things, is to look at the risk landscape, right? Pretty standard stuff. For nonprofits and for organizations working with victims of violence, they're a business, right? They have general concerns around information security just like any other business would have. They also have communication channels. They talk to legal professionals, they talk to the courts, they talk to other advocates, they talk with victims. They have to be on call in some cases 24/7 to deal with victims. So they have communication channels that also put them at risk. They also have, imagine, a victim walking into a crisis organization carrying her cell phone, right? There's privacy risks. Lots of these organizations are totally unaware that using Dropbox might not be the best idea. Or communicating over open channels may not be the best idea. Because malicious actors in this context of these organizations, which I'll talk about in a minute, are very, very motivated. Fundraising. Fundraising is critical to any organization that is serving victims, or any nonprofit for that matter, right? Most nonprofits are either funded by grants, by endowments, by other big financial institutions, but they're also funded by personal donations, okay? Many of the organizations that I'm looking at rely heavily on just, the $5 donation, the $10 donation, the $100 donation, but you need a lot of those to be able to sustain an organization. The other part of the risk landscape for these organizations are the digital documents. Everything's becoming electronic now. There aren't so many paper files, right? Even in the court system. Everything is becoming electronic. So these organizations have to start figuring out how to manage that, have to understand what is secure and what's not secure. From two sides of it, right? From the traffic, or not the traffic, but from the flow of the information of those digital documents, but also from the content. So when I talk to these organizations, the first thing they say to me is, who would want to attack us? I'm hoping you all recognize Monty Python and the Holy Grail, right? Okay, this is a very serious topic, but doesn't mean we can't have a little humor along the way. But in all seriousness, these organizations are stepping back and saying, you know what, I've got these victims, I've got these survivors of human trafficking walking into our organization saying, help me. I can't think about anybody else that's going to want to attack us. So here's some of the attackers that I've been looking at. So of course, you have abusers and traffickers. Those who want to control the victim. These are highly motivated people, okay? Some of these people are very tech savvy. Doesn't mean that an abuser isn't a technology specialist. An abuser can be an information security specialist, right? Men and women. But if you think about it, every time a woman or a man walks into a domestic violence agency with their cell phone, they're bringing their attacker into that environment, potentially, right? There's a huge number of cases where people are walking into these organizations with infected malware on their phones. Hackers. Just last week, I was at an organization in Cambridge that I was trying to enlist to get their database to help in my research, and they graciously said, yes, whatever we can do to participate would be great. In the course of the conversation with this organization, they said, oh, well, this is really interesting you're here, Kelly. We just had a DDoS attack last month. I'm like, oh, okay. So how do you know that? And they said, well, we have a third-party vendor, and they told us. And I said, oh, and what happened? They're like, we don't know. I said, who do you think did it? We have no idea. What have you done to protect yourself against it in the future? Nothing. We think the third-party vendor might be doing something, but we don't know. The other same conversation with this organization, by the way, they're phenomenal. They're highly successful in the work that they're doing to combat human trafficking. But on the other side, they told me that they were going to have a hackathon coming up, and they were really excited about it. And I was trying to be really excited for them until I started asking questions. And I said, oh, great, what are you going to try and capture in this hackathon? And they said, well, we want to get all of the contact information of the traffickers and the pimps off of their phones. We want to be able to hack into the phones, get all their contact information, so we can start bringing down their businesses, okay? Because this organization is all about bringing down the businesses and not necessarily direct services to victims. I said, oh, that's cool. Okay. Have you been advertising? Oh, yeah, we're advertising all over social media, and we're advertising all these places. And I'm like, oh, seriously, you guys, my head was going to explode. And I will never play poker with anyone because I truly cannot have a poker face. So I'm going, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow. And I said, all right, have you done anything to step up your security? Have you talked to your third-party IT folks? You know, what are you doing? Oh, well, we never really thought about that. And I said, well, you know, the bad guys are also on social media, and the bad guys are probably watching what you're doing. Considering you just had a DDoS attack, I'm sure there's somebody in particular or group that's particularly watching you. The human trafficking organizations are of particular interest because of their political positions, especially some of the more international organizations combating human trafficking. But hackers are not, this is part of their landscape. This is part of who the malicious actors are for these organizations. Then the other one, which is a little bit more benign, but still important for them to realize, is the data mining attackers. Some of these nonprofit organizations are very well funded, and they're well funded sometimes by wealthy people. Wouldn't it be interesting for somebody to be able to capture the names and addresses of donors? The other thing that I mentioned to these organizations is, what if you were attacked just by getting your database of your victims? And they're like, well, their names are out there anyway, or they're public records. They kind of danced around the question. And I said, but what that might do is actually compromise the trust that the community and that the people that you serve have in your organization if you can't protect yourself. So, what's also unique about these organizations? Because what I've been taught as, and now I can't even call myself a researcher yet. I think I'm a researcher light. When I finish my degree, I might be a full researcher. But the beautiful thing about this PhD process, besides all the gray hair on my head, is that I'm able to see things from the business side and from a research side. So I'm looking deeper into what these organizations, what makes them unique. So priority one for them is always about servicing the victims that walk into their organizations, right? Or that contact them. That has to be priority one. Thinking about information security is not their priority. Sad, but it's not their priority. They have to be playing in the legal sandbox all the time. Court records are public. My stalker was able to get the details of the restraining order that I filed against him and get the name of my daughter's school because those records are public. So they have to fit also within that arena that has its own issues around information security. They want to share information. A lot of these organizations are built on communities. They're built on communities that want to share details and share stories and help get more services to victims. So it's about sharing those information. They need the money. As I mentioned, fundraising is critical for these organizations. And by the way, lots of them are running on shoestring budgets. So how are they surviving? Volunteers. How many of you do IT support for your families? I asked this last year, I know. Come on, I know there's more people in this room that have fixed an iPhone or fixed a laptop, right? You do IT support. These organizations are going out to family members and friends and saying, you know what? I met with Kelly and she scared the pants off of me and I really need somebody to take a look at this. Can you help me out? Right? Not to say that volunteers aren't great. Volunteers are awesome. But you want to make sure that in these environments that it's appropriate to manage the risk. So some of what's stolen from nonprofits, okay, this is from 2014, I'm sorry it's a little bit blurry, but it just gives you a big picture view of what's stolen. Top 3, financial records, business documents, and internal communications. For a domestic violence abuser, he or she may want to see what's being said about him between the victim and her advocate. Okay, because it's all about that person. And it's all about control. So I'm not going to walk through all the pieces, but let me just walk you through the donation processing, what I've discovered in my research so far. Again, this is not on the radar at all. I had an executive director of a domestic violence shelter sitting on my porch in Boston. We were having a conversation about my research, and We're having a really healthy conversation, and then I said to her, I said, have you thought about your donor database? And she's like, no. I said, how come? She's like, because we have victims we have to serve. We have a domestic violence shelter that is overfilled. We can't service the people in our community. We have other priorities. So donation processing is not even on their radar. Imagine all the other elements of information security that if you had an IT or an InfoSec team in a big organization, all the things those people would be looking at, not even in the stratosphere for these folks. This, the processing of money that's critical to their survival, is not even on their radar. Many of them are using PayPal, fine, okay? But some of them are also using third-party services that just on a very broad look in my research were like sketchy 101. I'm like, oh my God, who are these organizations processing these donations, right? They're using HTTPS. Okay, I know HTTPS is being widely used, but it has problems. Will we all agree that HTTPS has problems? Certificate authorities. Yes, it has issues. Okay, the thing is about this is that we're not telling organizations like this that HTTPS has some benefits, but it also has big problems. We should at least tell them about the problems. For controversial organizations like human trafficking, these organizations that are combating human trafficking, they don't have an option to donate anonymously, which I find really interesting. I went to look at a CRM, customer resource management system, when I was working at Tor. And I was in this great conference in San Francisco, and it was an open source project. It was all community. It was so exciting, and we were talking, and I'm sitting in the session, being quiet and listening. And then they said, do you have any questions? And I raised my hand, and I said, is there a way to donate anonymously using this tool? And literally, everyone in the room turned around and looked at me like I was a freak. They're like, for nonprofits, donor databases, that's their customer database, right? That's who they're going to be reaching out to. But if you're working in an organization where sometimes people might want to donate anonymously, you might want to give that option. Right now, people aren't even thinking of that. The other thing is that most of these organizations have no idea if an attack or a breach has even occurred. This one executive director said to me, she's like, I am sure. She's like, we've got a whole bunch of hits on our website from Bangladesh, and we have no idea why. And then she said, and I'm a little bit afraid, because if I knew why, then I would have to do something about it, and that is a whole nother layer to this that I don't understand. So for these organizations, and in my perspective, sorry about that, it's about balancing the technology, the privacy, and the people, okay? We can't just look at the technology. I was at a tech summit run by the National Network to End Domestic Violence, and big companies, Google, Facebook, Twitter, were all there. And they were throwing all these technical solutions out at these organizations, and these organizations were sitting in this room, 400 organizations with people at the edge of their seats going, okay, that's good, but I don't understand anything you just told me to do. Okay? And it's about the people. We have to integrate the people into it. So how do we help them focus on information security when technology is scary and overwhelming? Most of the time when I go in and talk to any organization, the first thing I tell them is about the frequent locations tracker on the iPhones. Everybody in here probably knows that. It's like 5 layers into the settings. Tracks where you've been, how you got there, and how long you were there, all that good stuff. Yeah, that scares people a lot. Because the organization in Cambridge, I walked in there and the guy's like, oh yeah, I know about location services. Duh. I'm like, okay, let me show you 1 layer deeper. And then he got scared. And I don't want to scare people, but sometimes we have to break them out of their comfort zone. The other thing is that these organizations are saying, don't make me talk to an IT person. God almighty, please. Don't make me talk to a computer person. Don't make me talk to an IT person. And for the love of Pete, I'm not going to talk to a security person. because they're going to scare me even 10 times more. It's sad, but it's true. I couldn't find any good pictures, so you get the kitten. I like it too. Kittens aren't dying though, let's hope. But part of why we scare people, part of why our industry scares people is because of this. Right? PGP is flippin' scary to non-technical users, okay? Never mind setting it up. If somebody in a crisis organization were to get an email that looked like this, they'd be like, oh my God, and now I have to call the IT people. Oh no, please. They also see information security people like this. Every time I tell somebody, oh, they're like, oh, Kelly, what are you getting your PhD in? I'm like, oh, information security. They're like, no. You don't look like you're getting your PhD in information security. I don't look like that, you're right. I don't look like the Tor people either, okay? But this is part of the persona, okay? For these organizations, we have to help them understand that information security isn't about hackers all the time, right? It's part of the equation, but information security is much broader, and we're here to help. So these crisis organizations are using technology every day. They are on social media. Oh my God, some of these organizations are on Tumblr and Instagram and all these social media sites where I'm like, why? First of all, tell me the business reason, putting my business hat on. What's the business reason to be on that particular social media site? And by the way, what about your security risk? So they don't really understand what risks that they're incorporating or what they're taking on by using different technologies. There are crisis organizations that have advocates using their own personal cell phones. I could do a 2-hour talk on BYOD for crisis organizations. It's a big problem. But there's some things that we can do to help them. Again, IT support, this is redundant of earlier, sorry, but it's important for people to know that a lot of nonprofit organizations either outsource their information security, information technology, or they get volunteers. 9 times out of 10, and that's not a statistical number. I will have one next year, but a lot of organizations do use volunteers. All right, so let me give you some examples of other stuff that impacts these organizations. This is an escape button. So many of the nonprofits working with victims of violence, on their websites, they have an escape button so that if a victim is on the site and their abuser comes into the room, they can exit out quickly. Sound like a great plan, right? In most cases, it is really interesting. It goes, some of these sites go to CNN, some of them go to weather.com, some of them just go to the Google homepage. But many of them, what happens is that they actually just keep the browsing history. It doesn't clear the history. So the abuser, all he needs to do, or she needs to do, is go through the history, and there it is. Okay? So they're starting in the right place by having these escape buttons on their websites, but it's not the end-all, be-all. This is not the easy button. Okay? I think a lot of organizations that don't understand InfoSec the way we do want the easy button. This, for many organizations, is their easy button. HTTPS. So I did a paper on HTTPS recently, and I went into it with the mindset of, if I am an advocacy organization, or if I'm a victim, and I want to search on something, and I see that HTTPS is there, I'm going to feel safe. Well, as you all know, we sometimes come up with the non-trusted certificates, right? This one is from Google Chrome. Everybody has their own, of course. Every browser has their own warning. I didn't pick the worst out of the bunch, but Google Chrome is pretty interesting. So if you put yourselves in the mindset, okay, of either a victim or an advocate in a crisis organization, what you would see here first is, see the big yellow triangle with the exclamation mark that says, okay, Doesn't say stop, it says caution, okay? Then it says the site security certificate is not trusted. Many non-technical users have no idea what a security certificate is. They're like, oh, what is that? So if you take the time and you read through, you're like, oh, okay, maybe this is something I should think about, okay? Safari, by the way, has the continue button highlighted, right? So they automatically say, continue on, don't even think about it. We're just giving you this little warning because we have to. But at least Google Chrome says, okay, proceed anyway or go back to safety. Help me understand. So if you have a user that's, curious, they go to this page. Holy guacamole, look at what we've got here. We've got more technical language in this thing than many users would even want to deal with, right? So how do we help organizations like this and other non-technical users really understand what this means when a certificate is entrusted? And how do we tell them that not all content on an HTTPS page is secure? These are some of the challenges. The other challenges that the crisis organizations are facing is protecting privacy loss versus serving victims. First of all, layering existing federal and state statutes regarding with technology is happening. There are some laws that are specifically geared towards technology, but for example, the harassment laws and the stalking laws in most states just have digital means added into the description. So there's no clear understanding or clear road when you're looking at the laws. The other thing is the privacy torts. There's limitations in the digital domain to protect the reputation of the crisis organizations. Confidentiality statutes. Not all states in the United States have the victim-provider relationships protected. You would think that it would be a no-brainer to have that type of thing protected. Never mind in a digital domain. Court proceedings, as I mentioned, are always public. Putting the name of the victim, her address, the crisis agency, if it's recorded in the courts, and any of the advocates at risk. The good news is that many of the crisis organizations are starting to think about internal policy, privacy policies. There weren't a lot of good examples when I did this research a few months ago, but I do have one that I thought was pretty good. This is the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. And what I liked about it is that it talks about the use of information, it talks about an opt-out policy, and it gives you more than, we're gonna help keep you safe, okay? It was a little bit deeper. A lot of the other organizations, a lot of the very small, particularly the domestic violence organizations and the stalking resource organizations, don't even have a privacy policy, or at least they don't have it publicized on their website, so that's concerning. An additional research that I did was on the privacy protecting tools that are available to average users. Again, what I did was I put myself in the place of a crisis organization that wanted to, learn more about it or protect their own privacy. So I looked at these tools from a few different angles. First of all, what's the difference between privacy, anonymity, and pseudonymity? Okay, there's vast differences between those three terms. Is the tool, okay, so does the tool provide them privacy, anonymity, or pseudonymity? Is the tool really untraceable? Or do they just say they are? What part of the human interaction compromises the security? And I have an example in a minute. But anytime humans are in our systems, they mess things up, right? Users mess things up all the time. And then, of course, how easy it is to use. There are a couple of examples of privacy protecting tools. DuckDuckGo is a great example. It looks very friendly, and they have a very cute little duck as a mascot, right? Who's not going to want to use DuckDuckGo? It looks fun. Other tools like iQuicks and Steganos are a little bit scary because they look really geeky. Average users and crisis organizations and nonprofits may not want to use them. So here are a couple of examples from that research. HideMe.com. First of all, that's their tagline, by the way. Hide your internet history from your boss, your partner, your kids. Those are all evil actors in your lives, so you have to protect your privacy, okay? And by the way, do not enter confidential information unless you're on a secure connection. What's the likelihood that average users understand what a secure connection is? You know what I bet they would say? Well, I'm using HTTPS, that's a secure connection. Right? Steganos Online Shield does not share user information to third parties unless, dun, 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 the user has explicitly and willingly agreed to do so, or, by the way, if the FBI knocks on their door, they're going to give up their user database. You can't say that you're untraceable or that you're totally protecting people's privacy if you have loopholes like this. My issue is not with the fact that they do this. My issue as a researcher and as an advocate for these organizations is please tell them that this is what you're doing in a way that they get this. These types of information, this type of information is down in the terms of agreement, of course, right? Who reads the terms of agreement besides geeks like me? I like it. I won't even tell you about Uber's terms of agreement. Also, Steganos, I'm sorry I'm picking on them, but they sort of deserve it in my mind. We save user data on especially protected servers. The access is only made available to a small number of people. Okay. First question is, who? How many? Where are they? Do I know them? Are they my Facebook friends? Right? I want to know. If people are going to have access, don't you want to know? Especially if you're doing things, some of the organizations working with victims or combating human trafficking are working in situations that are very, very dangerous, okay? So even though we can make fun at some of this, for lots of organizations in this space, it's very important. It's saving lives. DuckDuckGo, we're only secure when you use Tor. It's written in their website. Seriously. Okay, so then you've got average user, right? There I am. I'm going to use DuckDuckGo because it's got a really cute little duck logo, and they say I'm going to be private. But oh, by the way, I'm only this private. To be really private, I have to go to Tor. And oh my God, Tor is used by, all these bad people in the world. I'm not going to use that. So then we leave users where? Kind of flying out in the wind. So a digital security breach in an environment that's built on trust can have an impact for more than just the services, okay? A digital security breach for a nonprofit organization could crush them. It could make them go out of business. And it could defame the reputation of the people involved. But it can also put victims at risk. Many victims don't even want to seek the services of some of these organizations because they don't know if they can trust them. If a victim has been abused through technology, he or she is going to want to know that the organizations that they're working with are also protecting their information. I ask all the time when I was talking to the service providers that were helping me, especially the FBI, I kept asking them, I'm like, what are you doing to keep me protected? What are you doing to protect our channel of communication? You just called me on my cell phone that my stalker texts me on. How do I know I'm being kept safe in this? But these are questions that are starting to now bubble up by victims using these organizations, so we have to think about this a little bit deeper. But the other thing that's coming out down the pike is that we have awesome technologies, right? Wearable technologies, great things, super fun technologies coming out, right? But how vulnerable are we going to have users like this be through technologies like this? Again, I'm not waving the flag of let's go crawl in a hole with my yoga mat and not use any technology ever. All I'm suggesting is that we have to understand the landscape of organizations beyond just the big guys and just beyond the for-profits. We need to understand the landscape of organizations that have people at risk so that we can help them bridge this understanding of what information security should be and help them identify, maybe not fix everything, but at least let's identify a priority list. I had a woman at the tech conference at the NNADV. We were sitting at a round table. She's a lovely woman, and she ran a domestic violence organization in a tribal community. And we were having this like little round table discussion, and she started banging her hand on the table. And she's like, Kelly, I want the policy. Just give me the policy. I'm like, okay, what's the problem? She's like, I need a social media policy. Give it to me. I know you have one. You're a researcher, you're in the space, give me the policy. I said, okay, well, can we talk about this? Where the conversation led was that she wanted to set up a Facebook page for her organization. She wasn't familiar enough with the security settings with Facebook to be able to set it up properly. She was concerned about the vulnerability that she was putting her organization and the people that she served at risk, okay? And she wanted an out, so that if something really funky happened, that her board of directors would not come down on her. So as you can imagine, there are lots of things to deal with in that one conversation. And the only thing that she wanted was the policy. So helping them break it down and understand what they're using and why they're using it is also part of this equation. And again, as you can imagine, many victims of violence have been threatened death or further abuse through technology. So we need to do more to help keep them safe. So what should be done? Because anybody who's been to my talks before knows that you can't walk away unless you have some action items, right? If I'm going to be working on my dissertation and working like crazy, I want everybody else to be working with me. Yes. All right, so here we go. First of all, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thing we use to create them, okay? The world of nonprofits, the world of crisis organizations is changing as quickly as any other organization when you're looking at technology, okay? Just because they're serving people in the physical realm does not mean that they're not dealing with the security challenges in the digital realm. So some of the things that I'm super excited about that I'm going to be doing, but if anybody wants to play and hang out with me and do these things, I'm excited about analyzing network traffic and other indicators to help identify security breaches. The only security breaches that I could find for organizations in this realm was one or two, well now two, now three, human trafficking organizations. 3 were the only ones that reported a security breach. I bet there's more going on in these networks than these organizations are aware of. So I want to go play and see what's happening. Not scaring them, but at least play. I think it's important for us to start identifying in the realm of crisis organization existing security technologies. I'm not asking for anybody to reinvent the wheel and to build something just for nonprofits or just for crisis organizations. What I'm hoping is that we can use existing technologies, just like the privacy protecting tools, and let's map that or mirror that against crisis organizations and say, would this serve them or would it not? Or maybe it serves them to this degree, or maybe we should educate them about how it serves them or where they're at risk, okay? But doing that taxonomy, I think, would be very, very helpful for these organizations. Identify policies, protocols, and training programs that fit the culture and the needs of the nonprofit. My dissertation research is going to be looking at a national standard. I had one picked out until I talked to Wendy. Now I'm rethinking it. And Josh Corman. So I can't come to LastCon again until my dissertation is done because these people have derailed me a little bit. But if we take a national standard and we can map where these organizations are today against that, maybe we can help them move forward in all of these realms. How can we make IT and security not scary anymore? Trust me, I spent 2 years at Tor. People were afraid to talk to me. I'm like, why? I practice yoga. I'm a mom. I love chocolate. What else do you want to know? You know, it's not that, it doesn't have to be scary. I don't want to live in the world of scary anymore. Okay, these organizations that I'm talking to live in the space of fear and danger all the time. I want to help them understand information security in a way that's useful and thoughtful in a business sense and not scary. So, your charge is that if you know of or if you work in any nonprofits as security professionals, I ask you, I beg you to talk to them about information security. Find out what they're doing. Give them a helping hand. Walk them through something simple, something that you know every day is super easy to keep yourself protected. Help them get it, okay? You are superheroes. Nonprofits and other crisis organizations view people who do technology and people who do information security as superheroes. No kidding. They think I'm really smart. I'm not nearly as smart as everybody in this room. I mean, truly, you guys have so much skill, so please be a superhero. Go find, or if you are part of a nonprofit or donate to a nonprofit, reach out to them and help them. And with that, hopefully next year they'll say, Dr. Kelly Basada, let's hope, if Gene Spafford doesn't get in my way. So, thank you.